Namaste and greetings. I, Diya Goswami, a researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्था, नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Talk. Today we have gathered here for a panel discussion on the topic Young and Restless in New India, Hopes and Aspirations and a Reality Check. This deliberation is a part of the series, The State of Population and Development, organized by IMPRI Center for Human Dignity and Development. Now, let me take this moment to introduce our gathering for today. As the moderator of the session, we have with us Mr. Devender Singh, Global Studies Program, University of Freiburg, Germany, and a visiting senior fellow at IMPRI. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving to the panelists for our event, we have Dr. A.L. Sharada, who is a director at Population First, Mumbai. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Miss Anandamayee Singh, the Youth Engagement Officer, UNICEF, YuWaah. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Neha Buch, the advisory board member and ex-CEO at Pravah, and a senior consultant community, the Youth Collective. We welcome you, ma'am. And Dr. Nilesh Deshpande, National Technical Specialist, Adolescent and Youth at UNFPA, New Delhi. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite Devender sir to commence the session with his opening remarks and to proceed further. We look forward to learning from our esteemed gathering. Thank you.
Please unmute, sir.
Thank you, Diya, very much. And I also welcome and express my gratitude to all the panelists. Just to set the context for the discussion, I'll be sharing some thoughts. On the topic, which is young and restless in New India, discussing their hopes, aspirations, and also looking at where do we stand in terms of progress and what could be further done. India is a young country. There are 365 million young people in the category of 10 to 24. As per the census 2011, now the figures would have gone higher. They constitute 35% of overall population of India. And with the average age of 29 years, India is the youngest country in the world. Now, with that kind of cohort of young people, it's a unique demographic opportunity. Niti Aayog, in its Vision and Action Agenda 2020, has said that it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for India. And why it is like that? Because India will have a working population of almost 1 billion by 2030, which is the largest in the world. So in percentage terms, it is 60% of population of India in the working age group. And when we see the graph which I have given, in terms of increase in the population between 2001 to 2031, the contribution of working age population in the overall population is 84%. So most of the increase which is taking place since 2001 is taking in the age group of the working population. But having only the numbers, large numbers, is not just a given that we will also have demographic dividend in the country. We need to have right conditions so that the young people could realize their potential. What are those right conditions? That we have healthy and well-nourished young people. They are appropriately educated and they are skilled, and there is access to opportunities for growth and productive engagement in work as well as in public life. What we have seen that there has been tremendous amount of progress in different parameters, but despite this progress, there are gaps, there are vulnerabilities, and the progress is patchy. It's not universal and it remains fragile, which we also show during the COVID when many of these parameters, they got affected adversely. There are a number of programs, there are policy initiatives, there are several missions and schemes such as for universal healthcare, for education, for skill development. There are a number of programs. We also have a national youth policies in 2014. The aim of the national youth policy is, we can say, very aspirational. It's to empower the youth of the country to achieve their full potential and through that enable India to find its rightful place in the community of nations. There are 11 priority areas which have been identified with 5 objectives. These are: create a productive workforce, develop a strong and healthy generation, instill social values and promote community service, facilitate participation and civic engagement, and support youth at risk and create equitable opportunity for all. There are many other laws and policies like there is Child Marriage Act 2006. There is protection of children from sexual offenders, child labor law. So there is no dearth of policies and programs for the young people. Despite that, there are challenges, there are needs, and there are issues, and which I hope that we will be discussing during the panel discussion. One is there is widespread poverty and inequality, which on the one hand affect the possibility of an individual to secure services, access services. On the other hand, it also affects the possibility of the state to design and implement different programs, services. So what the program which Delhi can have because of its good financial condition, we cannot expect the same kind of programs and policies in Bihar, which again, we can say it repeats the cycle of people, the vulnerability and exclusion of a large number of young people in certain parts of our country because of this poverty and inequality which is there across states and within states. Then quality of education, again, there's a lot of issues at that level also, despite increase in the overall enrollment in the school. Like, for example, it's a Niti Aayog figure that only 2.3% of the workforce in India has had some formal training. So what kind of employment or productivity we are expecting when that is the situation? Again, despite increased school enrollment, 10% of the adolescent and 13 to 14% of the youth, they were illiterate at the time of 2011 census. Overall, if we look at that, the mean school or mean years of schooling is 5.12 compared to other developing countries where it is 7.09 years. So there also we are not at par with other developing countries. And as we know, that main reason of dropping out is poverty or the expectations from the young people to take on adult role, whether it is to do the household chores, or taking care of children, or looking for employment opportunity. Mental health of adolescent and youth has been a primary concern for several years. It was heightened during the COVID-19, and it is so serious an issue that self-harm and violence are overtaking maternal health related issues as the leading cause of mortality in this age group. Then next, what I have identified is the lack of data and research on the situation and condition of the young people, as well as impact assessment of different policies and programs. I mentioned that there are a number of schemes, but there is also an issue that these schemes in implementation, because they are implemented, designed by different ministries and departments. So there is a fragmentation at implementation of these schemes and programs. And we have a national youth policy, but we don't have a dedicated body to oversee the implementation of the youth policy. With this, I'll stop and I'll start with Neha. She has been involved in with the young people for several years, and I will request her to share her impressions, observations, that what it is to be a young person in India now and what it used to be. Is there any change? The aspirations and hopes of young people, are they same over the years? Or they have changed? So over to Neha, sharing her experiences and impression of the young people over the years.
Thanks, Devender, and I think it's really grateful to you for having set the context with some of the data and the figures, and I think I will refer back to that when I'm also talking about some of these. And I'll do a mix of just throwing some data out for all of us to sort of look at together, but also then speak a lot from the practitioner lens of having worked and engaged with young people and what one is seeing, because that also backs up the data in different ways, and I think brings in voices of young people. So, I just want to start off with this. That very recently I was in a meeting with a group of development practitioners, and we were talking about how has COVID impacted us and what are we seeing. And one of the biggest sort of challenges that a lot of these organizations are facing was that they were finding that young people were moving and changing jobs quite a bit. And they said we're not being able to retain them, and we can't seem to be, we're not being able to understand what is it that they really want, especially since COVID has happened, and things seem to have moved. And I think that seems to be the theme of what do young people want, and has it really changed considerably? Because even though and we were talking that we seem to be a group which has stopped over the years, and I think if you look at the main thing, actually it hasn't shifted considerably. It's just become more focused in certain areas, especially with COVID that has happened. And I think one more thing that we were talking about before this conversation started, and to keep it in mind, the urgency of the need for this conversation is that, till now we've been talking about demographic dividends. We've been talking about, yes, the age is going to be youngest, we're going to be the youngest country in the world, and yes, that's happening. But what MOSPE's figures are also telling us is that, by 2031, the age is going to come back to 31. But what we're also going to see is that overall the share of the young people in the country is also going to reduce. So we are going to, sorry.
We somehow lost ma'am's connections. Yes.
Apologies. Am I back and am I audible?
Yes, much better. Please go on.
Okay, perfect. So I was just mentioning that, how MOSPE's figures are indicating that actually the share of young people in the population is also going to be decreasing. So we are going to become an aging population soon. And so it is important that the demographic dividend, the window for that is starting to narrow. So if we need to do something, we need to do something now to be able to leverage and ensure that, we're being able to maximize what we are calling the dividends of it. And I think what you rightly pointed out and laid for us, Devender, was, how when we're talking about dividends, it's not just in economic terms of the GDP, but for that, there are other indicators which have to be kept in mind, which are around health, which are around social context, which is around the sense of empowerment and agency that a young person feels, so that they can take on these leadership roles and navigate the spaces in the country and in the world. Now, it's also, and I know all of us know this, but it's important to place this caveat that we need to remember that within India, there are multiple Indias. There is a diverse group of young people. They are at sometimes they're at polar opposite ends of the stick, so to speak. So, during COVID, we've often talked about the digital divide, where you have some people who are sort of doing their schooling, their college, have access to, data of a particular kind. While on the other side, there's somebody who doesn't have a smartphone, doesn't have access to data, does not have the money, because their choice is between being able to eat and then, accessing a phone and accessing data. So when we are looking at our solutions and when we are looking at access, the notions, and this is one of the most dramatic shifts that COVID has helped us realize, is that data equity and access to technology and equity in that space is becoming one of the biggest aspects. And that will mean not just access to technologies, it will also mean capacity building around those aspects of how do you navigate it, how do you engage, and how does it come about. But having said all of that, I think one of the biggest gaps that we saw, and this happened during COVID when we hit an all-time high of unemployment, right? And when we you pick up any survey, for instance, if we pick up CSDS survey, and we just took out a survey in 2021. This is a series of studies that they have been doing of young people. 4 such studies have come out. This was the 4th one. Over a period of 15 years, they have gone back and talked to young people to track their anxieties, track their aspirations. And they did one which was in 2021. And they came back to say that 45% of the young people that they spoke to said unemployment is our biggest issue, followed very closely with poverty and inflation. And these are all connected because, interestingly, when you talk about mental health, when you talk about anxieties around that, a lot of them are connected with this as well. Because if you look at what is the chief anxiety in that area, then it is around financial security. It's the ability to be able to do certain things, being able to do that for their own lives as well as that of their families. So these are all sort of coming together. And when we place this in the context of, like the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor in their 2021 report talks about how 62% of the young people have witnessed someone close to them having started a business. And in the same breath, they also talk about how 60% of them have seen people shut down their business during the pandemic. So, what that has done is, while we have, because, with all the skilling conversation, we were seeing a huge movement towards entrepreneurship. Now, with the pandemic, what has happened is that entrepreneurship has taken a hit in many ways. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities, but the experiences of having, some of the organizations, whether they're in the development sector or purely entrepreneurial, having taken a hit, not being able to sustain people, not being able to afford to pay salaries and continue whatever area of work that they were in, that has started to increase the feeling of fear. So the report also talks about how there's been an increase, only by 1% it says, but increase to 57% of the people talking about fear of failure. And when we, and there's a recent Gallup poll also, which kind of talks about how young people in India, when they are talking about things, and risk-taking is something that they feel most underconfident about. Now, all of this, and why I'm quoting these, because we can go on about this. I think there's another additional factor, of course, which is very critical to remember, is that female entrepreneurship has taken a greater hit than entrepreneurship led by men. So again, the same report quotes that 79% of female entrepreneurial activities have been hit, as compared to, say, 53% by men. Now, all of these are very critical for us to remind ourselves that one of the biggest asks for young people is that they would like to be able to have security in their financial future. And in order to be able to do that, we have to deal with an interesting paradox, where we have the industry talking about one of the highest shortfalls in skilled workers. So the Indian industry is also one of the highest ones, talking about, we don't have enough skilled workforce. And at the same time, we have one of the highest rates of unemployment as well. So there is a gap. And this is, of course, talking to the point that you were making, Devender, earlier, that, how well are these skilling activities working? How well are the entrepreneurial activities working? What more do we need to do? And I think one of the asks that I have often heard young people talk about have been around mentoring, because one of the things is that sometimes I am operating from a worldview and a context that is available to me. My ability to access a different worldview, my ability to access a different circle. So there might be resources available, but where I'm located and what I'm doing, how do I actually know that those resources exist and how do I get there? And then what will help me translate what I'm doing into a language that is understandable by somebody who's willing to give me the resources. So there are these gaps that exist in mentoring, financial support, the ability to build institutions. All of these have become therefore added asks which come with this larger piece that is there. I think the other piece that is very important to remember is, and this again, we were talking about this. WHO had taken out a lot of reports about mental health and well-being in India, even prior to COVID. And we were talking about how in India, actually after traffic incidents, mental health and suicide would actually become one of the biggest life takers of young people. At the same time, what COVID did was, I think it just sort of zoned in on it. It created conditions where it has only increased. Again, the CSDS survey talks about how 21% of the people have said they've had suicidal thoughts in the past 2 or 3 years, but only 10% have actually consulted a doctor for mental health issues. Now that's a huge gap. Now this is a survey, it's a limited survey. You scale it up, that percentage is it's a huge number in terms of people. And I think it talks about the second ask that is there, which is around the access to safe, secure, non-judgmental health services, which is both around mental health, but also around sexual and reproductive health, because again, that also connects, so my image of my body, how I'm engaging with my peers, what I'm seeing around me, all of those come into play very strongly for people. And we know that in this world, which is completely surrounded by social media, there's a TikTok, there's an Instagram. You're just constantly inundated by a desire to be visible, and there are conversations and responses to what you put up without a sense of accountability. So these safety nets and access to these services become absolutely critical, and which means both infrastructure, location, how they are articulated in the world in terms of, are they accentuating taboos of, oh my God, this person is going to access the service, or is it going to sort of say, no, this is absolutely normal, whatever way we want to define normal. And at the same time, it's also then about capacity building of the care professionals that are there, of being able to talk this language, of being able to understand young people, of being able to, again, embrace a worldview where we are not operating from taboo, but we're creating a safe space. We are able to help and invite and pull people in. It also sort of talks about very strongly that, one is of course healthcare services, but I think a lot of this is also then connected with, we talked about another point that you talked about, Devender, was, around the ability of young people to be able to contribute to the social field, becoming socially responsible leaders. And I remember, and I might have got the figures a little bit wrong, but I remember that I think it was 2017 that there was a State of the Volunteering Report of India. And it sort of talked about, even then it had talked about how it was difficult to involve young people in volunteering. And I know that we saw a huge rise during COVID because, neighborhood volunteering was really, really high. But actually, since there aren't any supportive structures around it, after in a sense, like, we're still in the pandemic, but say, we're not feeling it as sharply as we did in the last 2 years, this is not going to sustain. So, how and why this is critical is, one is that, of course, it builds on my capacities as a young person, because one of the skilling aspects that we've talked about, and one of the greatest insights we've had about our skilling programs has been that we need hands-on learning. Apprenticeship models, internships, all of these are critical, because you can't learn something sitting in a classroom alone on just by downloads. And so volunteering is one of those critical ways in which we learn a lot of life capacities. We learn a lot of these strong skills that we need, how to decide, how to engage. And it is also a place where we are able to build this worldview, which is a little different from mine, where I have exposure to diversity, where I'm able to build relationships, and I'm also able to therefore add to my well-being. So hence, it's a very critical strategy, a critical ask for young people that can this have a value in our lives? Can this be something which can be considered, in the space of education, in the space of jobs, in the space of some of these spaces? Because I might not have access to school, I might not have access to college, but I might have access to this. So, NYKS, all of these wonderful schemes that we have, can that actually start to be valued in some ways in these experiences? There are, of course, many other factors, and I'll bring this to a close because I think we will go ahead. But I think what I want to close with and highlight, because, one of the things that has happened, and I was just recently talking to a teacher, and she talked about how, she said, I am experiencing the students who were in 6th grade, and now they've gone to 8th grade. And she said that in the 2 years, what I'm seeing is that while they've grown physically, actually their emotional growth, their ability to engage with the world has been set back by more than 2 years. They've not been able to grow in that way, and for a country, that's going to mean a huge there's been grief, there's been trauma, but our abilities and our capacities have not necessarily expanded. And what we need as a country is actually, for our young people to be able to have a sense of agency and be able to take informed decisions, so the ability in all the spaces that they occupy, whether it's family, friends, institutions, are they being able to take leadership? Are they being able to understand? And they would like to get an equal seat at the table, where they are not just participating in consultations and surveys where they give an opinion, but they would really like to co-create and engage, because that's how the real learning will happen, and that's how perhaps we will come to also solutions, which will be powerful, and which would work for them as much as it would work for the rest of the nation. So I think the biggest ask would be that, and that is what I would end with for the time being.
Thank you very much, Neha. Number of points you have raised, and all what discussing. We will come back to these issues in our second installment. In the meantime, I'll request Anandamayee to come and share again how in their program, the UNICEF programs, especially the YuWaah program, how they have perceived the young people, like what they are hoping, what they're expecting from UN agencies, from donors, from government, from elders, older people. So, Anandamayee, could you please share your impressions of the young people, how you have seen them in your engagement with them?
Yeah, thank you so much, Devender, for inviting me to the discussion. I think before I kind of delve into how we as YuWaah work with young people and how the challenges we've faced and the solutions we've managed to create, just building off of what Neha has said, it's important to recognize that young people are not homogenous. There are many different aspirations and many different hopes that the young people in this country hold. And they represent diverse identities, whether that's across gender identity or expression, whether that's regional, whether that's around ability status or nationality status, or other socioeconomic identities around caste, class, religion, etc. And because of that, the restlessness that they face and the hopes and aspirations they hold are wildly different. And I think it's important just pulling that word restlessness, right? What does that mean? And how is that fomented? It's important to understand that with the diversity also comes great social inequities. You've mentioned that specifically, especially in the level of literacy, the skilling programs, the different lived realities, right? So it's important when working with and designing for young people to recognize that one size fits all is not enough, and that there are multiple barriers that they face. For example, as a youth engagement officer within YuWaah, I work with our youth advisory and I work with some remarkable young people. There's a young person in Nadwa who's from a Dalit community, and she is an extremely strong advocate for her community. She wants to be a politician, but she's also facing pressure from her family to pivot to something that has more immediate financial, like rewards in terms of her work, and also get married quickly. Similarly, divergently, there's a young person I work with who lives in Delhi who's visually impaired, and they create sensitization sessions and try to raise awareness on accessibility for people with disabilities, but themselves can't access spaces and conversations most of the time. For example, here, this panel discussion has closed captioning, but not all do, right? And then there's a young person I work with who's an entrepreneur who has the potential to create immense impact in the skilling sector, but is not heard in boardrooms and by funders who have the ability to support this person to scale up their initiative. So there are many different ways that young people are restless, and many different reasons that young people are restless. And when we create solutions, it's important to be flexible and it's important to be holistic in our approach. Neha touched upon that in terms of how it's essential to center the agency of a young person, and also essential to focus on sustainability. And for us, within YuWaah, we try to approach that by co-creating with young people and partners across sectors, and approach and use holistic kind of lenses. So we create pathways for employment, apprenticeship, and entrepreneurship. We also focus on learning and skilling, and we also work on social impact of civic engagement and how can we nurture youth innovations for our young people. And for us, in the 3 years since our launch, what we have tried to do throughout it all is listen to young people and partner with them. We do this mainly through 3 prongs or anchors that we use in all the work that we do. The first is to bring together, to break the silos, really, bring together players from CSOs, from the government and private sector to partner with young people instead of treating them as beneficiaries, to really see them as more than as the leaders that they can be, rather than implementers of our own agenda. So within our own structure, we have young people on our advisory board, co-creating with high-level officials from our partner ecosystem. They provide us with feedback on our strategies on a quarterly basis. We support their innovations and their initiatives on ground, and they serve as our ambassadors for the priority areas that we want to work on international and national platforms. And that's something that's supported by organizations like Pravah and ComMutiny, because they have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of resources that we can really leverage to scale and to be able to connect the dots with other industries, other players. Another thing that we do is we try to ensure, and again, Neha touched on this, but we try to ensure that there's an enabling environment for young people. So one thing is bringing them to the decision-making table and then having them speak for like 5 minutes and then going, okay, bye. And another thing is to focus on ensuring that they feel safe and heard, ensuring that they have the skills and the knowledge, that their capacity is built so that they can confidently and competently contribute. And this means when I'm talking about skill development, I'm talking about life skills, I'm talking about strategies and resources to cope with their mental health so that they have the resilience to continue to participate and contribute. And another thing that we focus on is, like Neha mentioned, mentorship is a huge thing. But another really important thing that enables young people's contribution, participation, and partnership in any project or any conversation is recognition of their leadership. So whether that's through certificates, whether that's through talking to the decision makers in their lives, whether that's through financial support, recognizing the work that they're doing so that they can continue to do it is really, really important. And it varies for different ages and different stages. And then lastly, I think for us, it's really important to include the perspectives and lived realities of most marginalized young people. So we try to ensure we do that through doing outreach through multiple channels. So while a lot of our tools are online, we also do offline boot camps. We reach out through community radio, through online webinars, through IVRS systems. And we also provide resources for people to be able to digitally connect. Neha mentioned that there are young people who don't have smartphones. So how can we support them? How can we perhaps facilitate a device sharing? How can we ensure that they have the means to be able to connect to these conversations where their voices will make a huge difference? Is something that we focus on. And we also try to ensure that all our language and our approaches are youth friendly by consistently listening to the young people that we want to work with, our youth representatives, our youth advisors, and ensuring that our models and our tools are pliable enough to quickly adapt to diverse lived realities. Again, all of this is not knowledge that we as YuWaah have accumulated over 3 years, but is because we've been able to learn and listen to diverse players and build on the knowledge and mechanisms that they have. And really, I think that's the power of a multi-stakeholder platform, is to convene, to break the silos, to ensure that we are able to leverage the shared knowledge that we have to impact at scale. I think I won't take much more time, but really just reiterate what I've heard. The time to support young people is now. Our demographic dividend is closing, and I know that every single person who is listening and every single person on this panel has the expertise and the passion and knowledge to be able to support and nurture the youth of this country to really be able to take forward our shared agendas and our goals and ensure that we are creating positive change. But that cannot be done if we don't see them as people with agency, and we don't see them as people who have the potential to lead, not just implement, co-own, not just amplify the work that we.
Thank you very much, Anandamayee, for sharing your thought. Again, not taking much time, I'll request Sharada ji to make her presentation.
Please unmute yourself, ma'am.
Thank you, Devender ji. Thank you, Arjun ji, for giving me this opportunity. It was really wonderful listening to Anandamayee and also to Neha, and they have really put everything in perspective. And yeah, there is a lot that needs to be done. Before I share some of the data, I would like to mention that we've been working with youth since 2005 onwards. We worked in all the colleges, and we work in around 100 villages in Shahpur block. And as has been repeatedly mentioned by the earlier two speakers, we have been working, acknowledging, respecting the agency and choice of the young people, and then we have co-created the programs with them, whether it is 1 minute films campaign, or the change makers clubs in colleges, where they take up the whole issue of gender equality, gender sensitivity, and then weave it in their co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, in their curricular activities. So we have been working with the students and through WDC and NSS collaboration, and it has been a great experience for us. And the kind of insight the young people bring into, when talking about gender or gender equality is something really, it's an eye opener for us. and they feel very passionately about it. I'm not talking about, when I talk about colleges, we are not looking at health and other issues. We are looking more at mindsets, gender, how do they see gender relations? How do they respond to gender-based violence? How do they look at the equations, between boys and girls and other genders? So this is, we have been working very, very closely with the young people. And in our villages, the focus has been on, listening to them, empowering them to take stand on issues, and then fight for their rights, whether it is a road to the school or a bus for them to reach their schools in high school, or negotiating with their parents, or whatever it is. So we have been focusing on sexual reproductive health awareness creation, reproductive rights. We have been talking about life skills, which is very, very important, how to assertive communication, negotiation, all those skills are very, very important. And more importantly, we feel that empowerment is when they are able to access institutions and people in power. So that really brings a great change in their perception of themselves. So we create opportunities for them to interact with the panchayat, gram panchayat members, with the state health care providers, or district level BDO, block level officers and others. And then they are encouraged to find solutions to the problems that they are having, rather than giving them a solution on a platter and we working on it. So they identify the problem and also identify the solution, and then they work on it. There are two sets of data I would like to share. One is a boys' room, incident that happened some years back, a couple of years back. It would really put all of us, though we all knew what is happening, but it was it came as a shock. And then there was a lot of social media hype about it. So the thing is that we really, we did a small, Survey Monkey, using Survey Monkey, we did a small survey, and then we found that I'll just share the, sorry. So this is something, and some of the findings are a bit shocking, but this shows the need to really work with the entitled class of people, those who are in big colleges, schools, and then who have such easy access to social media, and what is happening to them and how are they using it. Like, we have people in rural areas who don't have even access to a mobile or any kind of communicate. They didn't have any kind of access to communication during the lockdown, but here are the people who have access, and then we really need to steer them into the right. We need to have some systems in place to respond to this restlessness or this distraction of the young people in urban elite kind of context also, because whenever we talk about the poor people, the marginalized and other things, but I think this segment of the population of the youth also needs to be looked into. So what we found is that 80% of respondents are active on these platforms, and 2-3 hours they spend on social media every day, and some people spend almost 40% of them spend 3 hours a day, on media platforms. 9% of people spend around 5 hours on social media in a day. So that's a lot of time that they spend on social media. They all were part of private chat rooms. That's where the boys' locker room conversations about raping a classmate took place. And so most of them, more than half were members of the private chat rooms. Nearly 40% of boys mentioned that the chats were about sports. Basically, that's what attracts them. And less than 20% who discuss science or books. Almost half the boys talked about miscellaneous topics such as memes, games, politics, etc., etc. So one out of 2 boys, around 50% said the subject matter of the chat group is what interests them and what makes them join the group. And 20% expressed they need to learn new things. So it shows that there is a big demand for, reliable content on social media from the young people, because they would like to read, they would like to learn, they would like to have learn different things, and they see social media as the means of getting that information. So that's an opportunity for all of us who are working with young people. What kind of platforms or what are we using to reach out to the young people? And good, I think content is something which they are looking out for. Some of them, at least 30 to 40% of them. And 60% joined because the other boys are in the group, and 20% joined because they wanted to learn new things. This is our sample was only boys. So we had around 266 boys responding to a questionnaire. So acceptance of the peers, obviously at that age, peer pressure is acceptance is very, very important. And 1 out of 2, 50% of the people were uncomfortable with this kind of topics like sexism, sexual violence, rape, etc. But 21% didn't care. That shows an apathy or, not bothered. Okay, koi baat kar raha hai to baat karne do, it doesn't matter. And close to 15% of boys were uncomfortable with conversations of such nature. And 3 out of 4 boys never took part in such conversations, but 11% were silent spectators. So they were not opposing it. They were not, taking a stand on that kind of conversations. They are either silent spectators or they're just accepting as part of being young and, that as part of their life. And 6% of the people of our sample said that they have initiated such conversations and were active participants. So this is something very important. And 90% of the boys felt it was not okay to use derogatory language or abuses for women. So that is a big positive thing, that they think it is not right to use a derogatory language. But 45% felt harmless fun without consent was okay. I think this is mainly because of our films and the songs which make the hero pursue and tease the girl, and it is all shown in a fun way, which is not recognized. It is called eve teasing. It is not recognized as violence or violence in general parlance. In culturally, we feel it's okay to tease on road or whatever it is. This is a very, 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 I think, important data, because this is something scary. Like they think it is okay to have fun, engage in harmless fun, in quotes, without consent. And they felt that they should not be punished, and that they should be counseled, and then they should be put on the right track and not really punished for it. So that is what they wanted. And now I'll share another thing. This is the data which we collected from from our villages where we work. We work in a large number of villages in Shapur block. And here the issues are very different. The youth is very different. They are tribal girls. And, this is the what you call the sample is basically girls here. And we find that their issues are very, very different. And this is also with regard to, we collected this whole data using SurveyMonkey on mobiles. And this is the data which we have got. That means, and it shows their concerns and their aspirations, and what are the hurdles in achieving, fulfilling their aspirations. So 87 girls percent of the girls were attending school when the lockdown was announced. During complete lockdown, 61% continued their studies, and 50% of the girls were troubled by the continued lockdown, they missed going to school during the lockdown period, because that's the only means of enjoying and going, and like it was very difficult for the girls to be confined to home. And interestingly, 96% of the girls said they're interested in continuing their education, and 88% said their families will support them and they will resume their education after the lockdown. And they feel their parents have the capacity and the willingness to support their education. Then there are people who believe that, they will not be allowed to continue their studies because of unemployment in the family, whether it is of the father or the main breadwinner or the mother or whoever it is. So this is a big concern for the youth, current young women in rural areas, that they're not very sure whether they'll be able to continue their studies or not. And most importantly, they feel that they need more livelihood interventions. They want to earn money. They want to be independent. They want to be, they are very keen on getting involved in livelihood intervention. So we have the vermicompost intervention for the women, and we also have a kitchen garden intervention for the girls, but they are keen on learning something more and better, which helps them earn money. So this is something which is which we really need to look into. With regard to mental health, they felt very constrained because of lack of mobility. They felt anxiety, boredom, fear, and disappointment during the lockdown times, and they shared it with their friends, family. And most of them said that their family and friends were quite supportive, but there was no official or no medical kind of a support for them to address their anxieties and fears during the COVID times. Approximately 43% did not find any positive impact of the lockdown. We asked you, is there anything good about the lockdown that you like? Yeah, only 1/3 of the respondents said that they enjoyed spending time with their families. Otherwise, the rest felt that the lockdown was not having any positive aspects to it. And health matters, 80 to 90% of the girls had knowledge on precautions needed during the COVID, during the pandemic. And 86 girls recorded television as the source of information on COVID-19. And I'm very sure television is the most important influencer when it comes to the tribal and rural communities, because they consume it enthusiastically, and then they are very regular at watching serials, etc., etc. So when we want to reach out to the rural people, I think rural youth, we really need to look at the kind of content that we need to have on television, either sponsored or otherwise. And healthcare service providers, only 32% of girls received any kind of healthcare services from the healthcare service providers. ASHA was the most common service provider to disseminate information. The service providers visited once a week during the lockdown. And sanitary menstrual hygiene was a big issue, with only 3/4 of the girls having access to sanitary pads, and out of that 54% of them had to travel to nearby city medical shop to procure it. IFA tablets were not distributed, and mentioned that 55% girls mentioned that there was no change in their eating habits. We assume that there will be some change in eating habits, considering the loss of jobs, restricted resources, and also the gendered division in food distribution. But fortunately, and it is interesting to note that 55 girls mentioned that there was no change in their food eating habits. The remaining 45% said that yes, there is a little change. There is less food available for them and the women, and they are very keen on learning more. This is because it was during the COVID time, so they are more interested. They were more interested in learning about having more information about COVID. The reason why I shared these two presentations is that is because I feel that, as Anandit has said, that we cannot have one size fits all approach. Because where they stay, how they, all those issues matter, because people from rural, tribal areas have different issues than youth from elite colleges and schools. Then government schools have a different set of issues. So it's very important when we are developing the projects and programs to take them into consideration, understand their issues and understand their strengths, and then work on them. And we have to work with them as partners. Give them the agency, give them the choice to address their issues on their own, in their own way, not telling them do this, do that, but understand what are the problems, how they want to handle them, whether they want to handle them or not, and how they want to handle, and then create projects around that. I think that is something we really have to respect the, our youth and their ability to find solutions. Jugaad is one of our major strengths, and they have Jugaad for everything. And we need to really give them that freedom and space to find solutions. And that is my message to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sharada ji. So now we have heard what young people are thinking, what their hopes and aspirations are from different stakeholders, and what are the issues and challenges. Now I turn to Dr. Nilesh to look at where do we stand in terms of different programs and schemes which have been implemented, and what targets are progress parameters we have set vis-a-vis young people. Where do we stand at? Especially keeping the sustainable development goals as a framework, how much we have progressed and what further we need to do. Over to Dr. Nilesh Deshpande.
Thanks, Devender, and thanks, Arunji, for giving this opportunity to share my views. And I totally echo my panelist in terms of highlighting diversity. So I'll start and this topic of restlessness among young people and adolescents. Just wanted to share a very small story before I delve into more on where we stand. It was a small village in Chhatarpur when I was interacting with adolescent girls and trying to know what they want to do. And one of the girl wanted to be nurse, take nursing as career. So I asked her, what is it that she's doing currently? So she said, I am doing arts and in class 12th. So I said, how are you going to now go to nurse? And that simple answer from me saying that now I took arts and I cannot fulfill my aspiration, that immediately brought frustration and restlessness on the face of that girl, thinking that where I wanted to go. So I think why you are seeing restlessness is because the young people are seeing inequities in access to resources, be it education, be it your access to money, be it access to healthcare, information. So when simple small things are not there, then that brings a lot of restlessness to these young people. And I think when Devender said, how do we look at sustainable development goal and where do we relate to young people? I think if we really holistically look at all sustainable development goals, they really targeted toward end poverty, to protect our planet, and then ensure that every individual enjoy peace, prosperity. So looking at that, I feel if we really are able to achieve sustainable development goal, then in true sense, Devender, I feel the restlessness among young people will definitely, you are going to address and see them bloom and use their potential to the fullest and take control. we all know we came up with sustainable development goals in 2015, and almost 193 countries, including India, did a big commitment that we will achieve the 17 goals and almost 167 sub targets by 2030. And almost one third of those sub targets are like specifically targeted towards young people across the globe, including India. And everyone has realized that unless you cater to the needs of adolescents and young people, it's not possible for any of the country, especially country like India, when Devender was saying like over one third of population is young population, and you cannot just ignore what they need and what they want. And if you don't like really cater to their needs, we will never be able to achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030. And if you really see, like, consider any of sustainable development goals, be it poverty, be it hunger, healthcare, I think they, unless you cater and to adolescent and young people or engage them, it's next to impossible for any of SDGs to be achieved without participation, without active engagement of young people. And they are specifically, like, there are 20 very specific targets under this SDG 4, 2, 4, 5, 8, and 10, which contribute directly targeted towards adolescent and young people. Uh, as we all have seen and discussed earlier as well, Devender and all panelists, like, there is huge diversity, not only in terms of like progress on this various programs and policies on adolescents and youth, their implementation, their design, but also there is a huge diversity as highlighted by the co-panelists in terms of socio-economic status, religious status. And when we try and apply those filters where we stand, you can see there is wide variation. And even the data, disaggregated data, which Devender very categorically highlighted, we do not have so much of data around it to see where we stand on different layers and make a informed decision how we want to move. I think Devender and I would like to congratulate IMPRI to have this discussion. This is really opportune time. We have already come halfway from 2015 on sustainable development goal, and it's really good time for us to take stock where we stand, where we are not moving with the space. As we all are like saying, this is the right time for India to harness window of opportunity and you harness ripe demographic dividend. So if I can just quickly share where we are. So under SD, like, one of the key thing, if we see anemia, when we talk of hunger under SDG, one of parameter and anemia is anemia, where we want to ensure like we have access to good nutrition, good food for all people, and wanted to ensure their health and development. Nutrition comes like very critical. So adolescent anemia, where we said like, and currently if we say we are almost at 30% as per the report by Niti Aayog on sustainable development goals and where India stands. So we still have to do 50% reduction in next 8 years if we want. And anemia not only like has impact on your health only, but it has huge effect on your learning abilities, your work status. Like if you're weak, you're not really productive. So it's not a very standalone indicator. It has implications cutting across different SDGs and different parameters of life. Similarly, other aspiration which was highlighted by all our panelists is education and the concern of for education among adolescent and young people. So we have set some targets in terms of 100% enrollments at secondary education. So where are we right now? We are 50%. So still we need to cross half the road in remaining 7 years. So here, education not only helps you grow and empower, but address poverty, hunger, employment, your health. So it has a multi-dimensional impact. So I think again that's something very critical to look at and not stand alone as education. So the second important bit on education I would like to highlight, which were like marginalized communities we talked about. We also kept our target for disabled uh, adolescent and young people and their secondary education completion rate, where we thought we will be having 100%, but here I think we really need to move. Like currently we are just at 19%. So 19% adolescent and young people in India with disabilities are able to complete the secondary education. So I think if we are thinking of leaving no one behind, inclusive growth, inclusive development, then this is an area where this is education. But if you look at availability of services for disabled people or special marginalized group, you will find similar situations. So I think we really need to now go deeper and add those structures, add sub pockets, and focus our interventions toward that. Third important aspect in terms of gender equality, health, and everything, you can see like one of the target we are saying is sexual reproductive health is very important, which not only has impact on the health of women and the young people, but also their development. So one of the aspects where we are saying access to contraception or made demand for contraception among young people, that should be 100% by 2030. So where are we right now? We are just like 40% of adolescent contraception demand between age 15 to 24 we have fulfilled, and this data is just released and based on the NFHS 5, which is like released few days back. Similarly, if you look at SDG 3, MMR, universal health, and subcomponents of MMR, IMR, we are still a long way to go. We are at 113 for MMR, where and need to reduce almost by half. And under 5 mortality, we are aiming to achieve below 25, and we are at 36. I'm being a public health professional. I would like to take you slightly deeper and try and give you how some of the sub indicators related to adolescent health, where we stand on them, and specifically using this opportunity and share some of the critical findings coming out of NFHS 5, which has impact on SDG 3 and SDG 5. We all know child marriage or early marriages has an impact not only on the health, but also on overall development opportunities for young girls. That's one of the most common reasons from dropout of adolescent girls. So almost 1/4 of adolescent girls are still getting married before legal age of 18, which stops them from education, put them under additional burden of that we all know, and they are like having a longest reproductive period, which makes them vulnerable to have repeated pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies, including morbidities and mortalities, and abstinence from their work. 7% of adolescent girls are already pregnant or mother by the age of 19. So you can again imagine what that means to be a young mother who is not even like having voting rights or even having that maturity physically or emotionally or mentally. So the mental stress, mental health condition, including development opportunities are very low. And you can easily see there is a strong relationship between the early age of birth and direct relationship to mortality and morbidities. I've shared about contraception, use of contraception among young people. So which is again very low, and that not only is because there are service availability issues, but also social norms. So at times we will have to go beyond individual agency. We will have to look at it more holistically, at individual agency, social norms and systems put together and try and work as a concrete solution. Another important part, if I could say, like, still 1/5 of adolescent girls overall, if we add layers, do not have access to safe menstrual hygiene products and practices, so making them more vulnerable to school dropouts, reproductive tract infection, leading to morbidities and mortalities. So you can see there, again, gender equality is important aspect if we look at SDG, and if we want to have like overall development. And if we look at NFHS 5 again, which brought out again almost 1/5 of adolescent girls and young women do not have slightest of say in any decision making in their household matters, be it purchasing small items to purchasing anything. So that you can see like how if you talk of their development and if they don't have say, how do we really bring like talk of gender equality and achieve SDG 5. So I think that is something very important. And lastly, but not the least, the violence part of it among married, like when again NFHS 5 says that almost 1/5 of adolescent and young women aged 15 to 24 experience physical violence after the age of 15. That also shows, like, if we are talking of reducing gender-based violence, gender equality, then again this needs to go still long way for us to really as I said, like, government of India has already like really brought out a lot of policies and programs and schemes for empowerment of adolescents. And I think young people and adolescents are at the center, but still I think we really need to scale up these programs, see to it that they are really like implemented in their true spirits. And that's how we can really like move much faster on achieving SDGs and reduce this restlessness among young people. We really need to, as everybody has brought out, that young people are full of knowledge, skills, and innovations. So we need to really rely on them. We need to use them effectively, engage with them effectively, because partnership SDG talks of multiple partnerships, and unless you have partnerships with young people, I don't see we reaching there. So for me, if I say health, employment, along with employment, life skills education, and overall education would remain critical if we want to reduce restlessness among these young people and achieve our goals for 2030. I'll stop here. Thank you, Devender.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nilesh. Very informative and looking at different aspects of the sustainable development goals and targets vis-a-vis the young people. Very informative and a lot of food for thought for the panel discussion, the panelists to reflect back on. And from there only, I'll start with bringing Neha again. That Neha, what you presented from the CSDS studies, as well as what Dr. Nilesh presented, where we stand at in terms of achievement on the sustainable development goals. Are you happy the way country is moving as an advocate of the young people? If you are not happy, then what do you think we need to do?
Well, you know how it is. I mean, I'm a great believer in how discontentment is very, very important to being able to create the change. So I think there are things that we have certainly progressed on, and I think there's no doubt about it. I think the way we are talking about young people today, and the way we are talking about young people and the partnership we should have, we were not talking about it when I was younger, right? So we've certainly progressed. There's a lot of focus. There is an intent. Like what Dr. Nilesh said, I remember when RKSK came out. I mean, we were so amazed because it was such a beautifully created program, which looked at, it was not curative alone. It was looking at the next level and looking at a holistic way of engaging. So I believe that the intention is there. I think we've got some fantastic policies and programs. I think there are certain things that we need to look at. So one is, of course, and I think different people have talked about it, I think it's critical to recognize that the context of India is such that we operate in particular mindsets. So, there is a patriarchal setup, there is a way in which there's a hierarchy culturally that exists. And I think that mindset seeps into every system, every structure that young people are in. And I think that area of work, working with people and institutions which are in the universe of the young people, is extremely critical. So what is the work on capacity building? And these are not training exercises. These cannot be done in terms of, there can be some behavioral trainings, but it's also around, we cannot expect somebody who hasn't experienced, say, a democratic safe space to automatically be able to create it without having some support in understanding what it looks like, feels like, what are the tools, what are the ways in which to do it, and then some hand-holding. So I think one part of it would be that. I think the second part of it would be that we need to look at things in a cross-cutting way. So a lot of these agendas sometimes get focused on, this is the youth ministry agenda, this is the health ministry agenda, or this is the mandate of a health-oriented organization or a youth development organization or a mental health organization. And I think our ability to go across sectors and agencies on mandates of young people is critical. Now, this is critical because because I also completely believe that what has been said by other people, that we cannot. There are so many diverse young people, as is the case with communities. It's not just unique to young people. I think it's true of the space that we occupy. We need to be able to work on contextual solutions. But in order to be able to work on contextual solutions which are holistic, which work on one another and are sustainable, and therefore make optimum utilization of resources. It doesn't become like, my organization needs a 1 crore budget and your organization needs a 1 crore budget. No funder is going to give us that. But the more we are able to integrate it and develop it in contextual ways, the better it will be for any group of young people. And we have examples. We have examples of YuWaah trying to do that. We have examples of Varta Leap in CYC, where we are trying to do that, where we are coming across and saying, let's learn, let's learn from one another and let's co-design. Because I might not know it, you might know it. Now let's put our heads together and create something. So that's the second, I think, very, very critical. I think the third one is, how do we maximize the schemes that exist? We've all talked about the fact that there are these different beautiful programs that exist. How can we ensure, how can we have better sort of civil society government partnerships, which are much more stronger, so that we are able to maximize reach in terms of quantitative access, but also qualitative access through these partnerships. So, having, and there are some fantastic examples of where this has already been done. I think the question is, can we actually, A, be sharing much more of this, and B, can we come together to work on making this more viral, making this more like a movement across and a norm across, rather than, oh, this ministry just felt like it, and so therefore, can it become a principle of how we want to engage with the national movement? And I think the last bit that I'm speaking about is that I think for us to be able to walk the talk, so for all of us who are advocating it, for all of us who are sort of initiating this, how do we ensure that we are demonstrating and putting in front of people how it is being done and what the impact of that can be? So, where are we in our spaces, in our systems, bringing in young people in policy making? Where are we bringing in young people in spaces to co-design programs and evaluate programs, and then be able to come at a platform and engage? And for that, it is critical that, it requires for us to also change, because the same set of platforms may not work for young people as the ones that may work for older adults. So we may have to design those differently so that there is a greater sense of confidence for people who come in, and apply different processes. And I think the other one I want to just say is ensuring that young people are in leadership positions also in peer-to-peer spaces. Because I also feel like when we're talking about inequity, when we're talking about such a vast difference, I think it's important that with young people, we talk about both rights and duties. The fact that we must have access, and we also have a sense of responsibility. How can we inspire young people to take that on? Because the reality is, you cannot thrust ownership on someone. You can't thrust a sense of responsibility on someone. You can offer it, then people have to take it on. So how are we be able to inspire that and make that happen in its truest forms? I think some of the things that I would talk about as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Neha. Anandamayee, my question to you is that we have almost 36 crore young people, which is, if you look in terms of the population, could be the fourth most population country, like China, India, and US. Then it will be that young population. And the private sector, it uses them as a payer of the school fees or college fees or the medical fees. Private sector, it uses them as providing its labor to enhance the productivity and profit. What private sector is doing for these young people? Do you think that they are doing what is expected of the private sector, or there's something where private sector need to step up?
Thank you for that question. And I think I'll just begin by saying that maybe what's expected of the private sector also differs basis on who you ask. But when it comes to private sectors mainstreaming young people's participation and partnering with them, I think one thing to understand and have empathy for is that there's not a lot of knowledge that's public. There's not a lot of conversations around that are focusing on enabling systems and creating practices to be able to center young people meaningfully in all the work that we do, to be able to partner with them. But that being said, private sector players have been working on and supporting the young professionals in their companies to be able to build their knowledge, have been supporting them to take action when it comes to social impact by volunteering. But what they need, and this is basically the conversations we've had with partners within our ecosystems and young people who work in private sector structures, is like support to be able to understand what young people need and how that can be addressed with the resources that they have, whether that's technical inputs, whether that's support in branding, whether that's monetary resources or funds, or just connecting with mentorship for young people. There is a lot of scope and there's a lot of space for private sector players to be able to contribute exponentially to this like growing need. But they need to be supported, and they need to be part of these conversations where they're both co-creating and learning from organizations like Pravah, like ComMutiny, like the stalwarts of youth engagement in this country have been leading, so that they can incorporate and tweak that for their contexts.
Thank you very much, Anandamayee. And as in the program, you have been engaging multi-stakeholders, NGOs, and civil society organizations in the private sector and the young people. So lesson learned from that engagement could be made available to other stakeholders also who can also adopt them or scale up or replicate in their own field. Sharada ji, my question to you is, especially the study you presented on the social media. One simple question or short question is, did you also inquire in your second study during the pandemic, what was the role of the social media in giving information or misinformation or making them aware where services are available, where services are not available? What was the role, whether it was of the social media, whether they perceived it's a positive influence or more of kind of negative in terms of giving more fearful images? Second, related to that, in this time of too much technology available, to kind of, as Neha was saying, inundated with social media and images, and not having a kind of where do we stand in a sense of what is right, what is wrong, because we are just consuming it as a young people and not having a moral compass, if I can use that word, or a sense of balance. So how do you see how young people are taking the narrative of the new India, today's what policy programs and different initiatives the government is taking, what is happening at the society level, how the social media is acting as a positive or a negative, not only in terms of the pandemic when you did the survey, but overall narrative. What is the situation of the young people in this?
Please unmute.
Yeah, we haven't asked them questions about how they are consuming the social media during the pandemic. We actually used the Survey Monkey format, to reach out to them and ask them about their problems and how they are, what is their situation with regard to education, health, and mental health, etc. So we did not ask them whether they are using the social media and how they are using, etc., because that was not the agenda of that particular survey. But what I really feel is that each time something like this boys' locker room happens, there is a new knee-jerk reaction. Everybody is hyper. We start, talking bad about the social media. It is ruining our culture. It is ruining our children. We go on. But rest of the time, we are not really concerned about it. We do not really pay much attention to what is happening on social media. I always tell, even a pornography movie can be a good education tool, if only you have a good facilitator to talk about it and then create awareness about certain issues. But the fact is that whether it is parents or people like us or the teachers, we do not want to talk about it. We don't really have conversations about the content. We do not, we really don't have anything where there is a candid conversation is possible in schools, or where there is a safe space where young people can come and talk about anything. That space is really missing. We try to do something by creating change makers clubs and all that, but unfortunately, due to lack of funding, we had to close that. But the thing is that we should create those spaces within organizations, within schools, within colleges. There's nothing good or bad content, right? It is about how you see it, how you internalize the messaging. So, and then we cannot control the content which is there. That becomes again, that's not the right way to go about it. Because how much can you control the content and whose content? That becomes a big issue, right? When you have a very widely divided or right wing, left wing, blah, blah, then it becomes very difficult whose content will be accepted on social media. So let's not go into that regulation part of it. But what we can do as adults is to open up conversations with young people, giving them more scope to express their views, and also give them alternatives, reliable, good, social media, portals, social media posts and campaigns, etc., that will engage them, in good way, because we have, as the study shows, that youth want to know about sports, they want to know about books, they want to know about science, So the reason why they join the chat groups is because they want to know something about some of these things, but then it deviates into various other things. So how do we create that kind of content on social media? We cannot oppose social media, but we have to make our presence felt on social media by giving good content to the young people. And that is something we need to really, UNICEF, UNFPA, all those people who are working on young people, they should, I think it is very important to create good content and promote it in a big way and make them the hubs for the young people, where they want something on sex education, they should be able to say, this site of UNFPA gives us the best, or this site of UNICEF gives us the best date information. If I want to know about books, if I want to know about something, so this is where I can go and talk. If there is any gender-based violence, if anything to do with that, okay, this is where I get full information. I don't know if you really have a place where a young person can log in and see whether what he or she is experiencing is really gender-based violence, what she needs to do, what he needs to do, who to approach. That kind of information is nowhere there. So if somebody is teasing you, is it bullying or is it just friendly banter? We don't know, because like people have no idea, like what they're going through is something objectionable, and they suffer in silence, and then it harms their mental health also. And where do we go for mental health? There is no free counseling which is protects their confidentiality and privacy, where they can go and ask questions. And you have this agony on aunts and then uncles, and then newspapers have, which are more for titillation, I think, the kind of questions they ask. But there's something which is really, which gives them information, which gives them support, which directs them to the right person to avail services. That kind of resources I don't see. Maybe I have missed out on them. They may be there, but they are not so popular that, they pop up when I ask for such kind of, when I put certain search words on the browser. So I think there's no point in fighting the social media. We have to join it, and we have to make our voices heard on social media. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much. I saw Nilesh getting excited about UNFPA providing these messages, or UNICEF doing that. Maybe RKSK could have one section on that. But Nilesh, I want to ask you another question. Seeing our progress earlier, when it was the time of the Millennium Development Goal, there also we tried to implement and achieve, but we were sluggish. Now, similar situation we are seeing in terms of Sustainable Development Goal also. Not very sure whether we will be able to meet all the targets which we have set. Like there are 167 goals, but the number of targets which MOSPI has done, it's huge. Whether we will be able to achieve that or not. And my personal feeling is that just like migrant, young people are also not high priority. I don't know whether it's because of the thinking that they are young, they are healthy, they are already in college or school, so we don't have to worry too much. There is a lack of focus in terms of also what Neha was also hinting, I also presented, that because different ministries are responsible for different parts. Health ministry is having some program, Ministry of Youth is having some program, and so my question is, will it help if we have some sort of mission mode on the young people? That's just like we have Universal Health Mission, RKSK, or like if we have a vision mode around the young people, will it help? And whether we have a high-level advisory council or commission which is headed by none other than the Prime Minister himself, because of the, why I said I'm saying this, because of the large population, 36 crore, because of the urgency of slipping away of the demographic dividend, very narrow window which panelists highlighted. Should we, as UNFPA, as well as different civil society organizations and advocates of young people, should we push that with Niti Aayog and PMO, and that we need to have this kind of body? Because like there is a national youth policy, but have we heard anything how it is being implemented? Who is responsible? So what do you think?
Okay, thanks, Devender. That's quite a long question to answer. But I feel, Devender, what you said rightly earlier, if you really see Indian public health evolution or development sector focusing, so we always had extremes. Like we always said, like children, women, and then other side we went elderly is recent one, but most of focus said like here it is like these are the ones where you invest and then everything will be all right. And that was the reason why like adolescent and young people, they are mostly seen as healthy and uh, uh, a little lagging behind on getting focused. But if you really see over last decade or after like RM and CHA plus A coming in, and then most of development partners, donors, like lobbying in as well as highlighting the need to focus on adolescent and young people and their key role in development of any country has really brought them on that platform. And even I think India, government of India has also acknowledged that as a key target population. And I have seen like in last few years, you are right, like we have different ministries having budgets and working on different aspects of adolescent and young people. So I'm not really sure, because like we all say their needs are very wide and diverse. So how is it possible to be catered by one creating one body or ministry? But definitely there is a need to have a like a body which coordinates with multiple departments which are directly engaging with adolescent and young people, like for skills mission, tribal welfare, is minority welfare. They all have some of the other resources. So how that can be. But in recently, Devender, I have also seen how Niti Aayog has been set and what kind of efforts are being made to like do that kind of conversions. And I think that is, if we think it's going to change overnight, that's something I am not really like. Uh, it's going to take time, and but I think we are on the right direction. The efforts which have been taken up, for example, the first program, school health and wellness program, which has been launched, I think that was the first program where two ministries pulled in resources and jointly it was launched. So I think that shows how now health is getting owned by different ministries, or adolescent and young people issues are getting roped in. RKSK also talked of engagement with multiple ministries and their convergence and collaboration. But how do you bring that functional collaboration or convergence is a matter of concern. And I agree that there has to be, like for state level, we always see if it's a chief secretary which is a heading that kind of committee, then it other departments, or district level it's much easier where district magistrate is head of all departments, so there is easy to converge. So I think similar thing needs to be done at national level as well as at state level, where such body. But and the other positive side, Devender, you talked about youth policy. There was a revision which was happening, and I think now Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports is taking quite a lead. And when the draft was circulated, I think it's quite forward looking. Now, definitely, we always have good policies, but it will be a big challenge for all of us, not only ministry, but also like UN partners. How do we collaborate and support actual implementation of that forward-looking policy, youth policy, which is getting revised? So I think that is something. But other thing, UN agencies under new UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, I think we have all highlighted need and focus towards young people and marginalized population. And now the way we used to work earlier is quite changed, and where now it's more engaging with government, Niti Aayog, and I think that will take some leap. And I'm quite hopeful, may not be all 167, but if we make efforts, I'm quite hopeful that India should be able to achieve more than 90% of what we have set for ourselves.
That's great. Coming to the only hopeful note, but we have gone beyond our stipulated time. So this is last. Anybody who has any burning issue or point to be raised, so can raise before I sum it up.
Yeah, Devendra, I just very quickly wanted to just say that, I think a lot of the conversation about the demographic dividend is obviously about the dividend. And I think the attention on, therefore, what are we sowing in order to get the dividend is the big one. So I think it's also about, therefore, having a vision where we are not looking at young people only as energy to be used and as future leaders, but how do we look at them as an investment, which is going to pay off today as well as in the future. And therefore, what do they need? So, and that can that be the point where we are looking at young people as human beings, as these informed, active citizens who play an active role in the country, not just by taking on responsibility in terms of the jobs that they take on, adding to the GDP, but also in terms of, therefore, being able to take charge of their own lives and their communities. So looking at it holistically and not dividing it into these pieces, which is often what happens. And obviously, programmatically, we may have to divide it into pieces to manage the program. But as long as the program structures are under that vision, and I think RKSK did do that very beautifully, it had an overarching vision, and it said, Acha, iske niche, then we've got these 7-8 different areas of engagement and different ways of engaging. And I think that's what we need to build vis-a-vis youth. And youth is not seen as a sector, as you very rightly said, and I think that's an effort that we do need to make. And I would also look to the different UN agencies. I know UNICEF is doing that through YuWaah, and I don't know if UNFPA is looking at that. But I think increasingly, if we can be supported by organizations and agencies to bring us together in a collaborative framework, where we exchange that and build that, and therefore are able to inspire, because even for the ministries to coordinate with 25 different agencies will always be difficult. But if there is a group which is together, which is going and engaging with the government, it also eases out and supports them much more increasingly to be able to address some of these issues effectively. And I think the second thing that I want to just say is, I think it's very remiss if I don't say this, because it's come up again and again. I think we have to also take a look at the world that we are residing in. That's one of the reasons why I'm saying this, because increasingly, and not just in India, but everywhere, we are seeing increasing polarization. We are seeing information flow in a particular way, and we're seeing how, because there is inequity, because there is so much gap, it is also very easy to fall prey to polarized ideologies and not be able to engage in other spaces. And I think that harmony and peace is also very critical need for young people, as well as for the country as a whole, for us to be able to progress and become who we wish to become. And so I think that implies to me that when we are doing youth work, we also need to have a framework of working with young people, which includes a set of values. So, whether we're looking at our own constitution as that inspiration, as we're looking at some of those, which helps us have a North Star, which is common that all of us can work towards effectively. And I think that's the other piece that I would like to just place there, so that irrespective of the sector we work on, we know that these are some cross-cutting areas that we are trying to ensure that young people discover and are able to imbibe as their mainstay. Yeah.
Thank you. Nilesh, you want to say something?
Yeah, just one quick comment. Devender,
Yes.
it's also equally important. We always say, what is it that government doing? What are the government efforts? I think it's very easy said than done. But we also need to see whether we as a society are taking that responsibility in bringing that change, along with sharing responsibility with government. So I think that would also be like critical piece if we are trying to create a world where youth is really empowered. It's not only what government is doing, but also as a society, what we are doing, how responsibly we are behaving with adolescents and young people, and what efforts we are making. I think that is more important to change that world. So thanks.
Yeah, very rightly said. I was looking one analysis. Government of India spends almost 100,000 crore per year on programs and schemes, which directly or indirectly affect adolescent and young people. So, and that's why I was asking whether it's only responsibility of the government to do everything, planning, designing, as well as investing its resources, and what is the role of the private sector. That's why I raised that. And you rightly pointed out that it's for a holistic development and holistic program or policy, it has to be responsibility of almost everybody, civil society, whether the private sector, government, UN agencies, multilateral agencies. So thank you very much. If I can just one slide, if I can present in the end. If just bringing the discussion to most of the, I had thought of these future focus areas, and these have also come in the discussion also. First, I think that the future focus areas should be data and research.
Devender, I think you're on the wrong
inequality slide. And different situations which young people live.
There we go.
Not this one?
Yeah, now we are seeing the right slide. Thanks.
Okay. Now?
Yes, it's
Yeah, we can see it. We can see the future focus areas.
Okay. So, so we need to do more research. We need to have better data. I don't know when was the last when Government of India, MOSPI, or any other agencies had a nationwide survey of the young people, their hopes, aspirations, and their lived realities. So we need to have that, as well as build capacities to do more research and surveys on the young people, and more holistic kind of surveys. We collect information on young people in different surveys, but that survey is not about the young people. Their hopes and aspirations. Maybe NFHS giving some information, labor survey giving some information, but those are not surveys of the young people. We need to have some surveys about the young people, as Neha was saying, like CHDD is tracking people over a long period of time. Then replicability and scale up. Like we have good programs. We need to scientifically assess the effectiveness of the program, and with higher investment and targeting higher coverage, we need to quickly replicate and scale up those good practices. Then multi-sectoral participation, role of private sector as well as other donors and that has to be one focus area when we're looking at realizing the demographic dividend as well as attaining the sustainable development goals. Another is we highlighted that time is essential. Demographic dividend window is narrowing and narrowing. We need to do. It cannot be business as usual. To achieve the different targets on education, on healthy young India, on making them, giving them skills, giving them dignified employment opportunities, but also as a nation, being how we develop as a nation. So we need to go in mission mode. We need to a high-level council. I'm not saying for implementation, but more for as an advisory role and keeping a close monitoring overview of different programs implemented by different ministries and departments. So these were my, I thought like these 4 or 5 areas if we can focus on, and no doubt there were other very good suggestions which came from the panel discussion also. With that, I'll end, and from my side, I would like to say that this was possible to cover all the arguments and points in 90 minutes. So hopefully we will have another bit more focused topic we will have in future, and we will have your presence in future discussions also. But thank you very much for giving your time and giving your ideas and suggestions. Very valuable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Devender.
you. Thank you,
Dr.
Devender. Thank you, Dr. Arjun. Bye-bye, Neha, Anandamayee, and Dr.
Bye.
Sharada.
Thank
Bye,
you.
bye,
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you, everyone,
Bye.
and all our panelists.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.